and welcome to another session of What the Tech. I'm your host, Rolando Rosas, and over here is my wonderful friend and colleague and co-host, Dave Kelly. What's up?
Hey, Rolando, how you doing today? Happy Friday. Welcome
Happy
to
Friday.
What the Tech.
What the Tech, baby? It's Friday! Woo! All right. So, look, we've got a really, people are probably gonna get tired of saying, but we really have a really good thing for the folks watching us today. We've got a masterclass for you on Bluetooth and DECT. I think that a lot of folks that are watching us today are really going to get a good deep dive and education. And maybe, Dave, there's a lot of folks that watch us that maybe are IT managers. They may have responsibility for other people, and they have to answer to a boss or somebody else where they have to justify what they're getting. In some
Sure.
cases, some of these headsets are not very cheap. And having some of those bits of nuggets at your fingertips, if you're trying to justify a purchase, can make that go a long way at times.
Yeah,
Right?
I
Wouldn't you
agree.
say, Dave?
I completely agree. The headset technology is it's just technical enough to be interesting, but there is some key differences with like what we're talking about today, Bluetooth and DECT. Wireless is not always wireless signals are different. There's features and benefits to all, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
All right, wonderful. Okay, so I guess the folks know what we're here for. Let's get to it. We're also going to nerd out. So if you saw the clip earlier today or earlier about the little teaser, we are in full nerd mode today. So you're going to get a deep dive on what we're going to do. All right. So before we jump to all that good stuff, Ori, let's go to the trivia question. All right. This is really interesting because uh, out people always are right now the hot topic is remote working, and there are people that are moving from job to job, and they may be looking at where can I work from home permanently or more than just beyond what this COVID situation could be. So we took a look at this, and by the way, this information is from as of but this was actually prior to pandemic because it's all over the place when you're talking about COVID and hiring. Everything's changed, but this was just who was doing the most remote jobs or hiring for the most remote jobs. So, is it A, Lion Bridge, B, Amazon, C, Dell, or JP Morgan Chase? So, you've got a couple of different types of companies, a couple of different industries. I was surprised when I learned the answer to this one because there's some that may seem as obvious winners, and that may not be the case. Do you have an idea, Dave? I don't think I shared that one with you.
You know what? I have an idea, but I guess we'll see if I'm right at the end.
All right, cool. All right. Well, so stick around to the end and we'll reveal the answer. All right. So let's get right into what we've got on for our folks today. So we've got a list of things that separates Bluetooth technology, which is what most folks are familiar with. If you use your smartphone, if you have Bluetooth in the car, if you have Bluetooth on a headset, people are very familiar with that from the name Bluetooth. Wouldn't you agree, Dave? As opposed to there's another wireless standard that's also been in play for a much longer time called DECT.
Right. Yeah. So when people are looking for wireless headsets, Rolando, sometimes they'll say, "I'm looking for a Bluetooth headset," and then what we're now asking is, are you specifically looking for Bluetooth, or you just want a good wireless headset? They usually say we want wireless, and then we kind of go into the conversation from there.
Right. And what we want to do is give the folks that are watching us. So if you're watching us, sit back, relax, grab your coffee. We're going to try to break this down one by one. And if you're watching us today and any of this requires a little rehashing, reach out to us. We'd love to give you a shout out on air here. Send us a chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and we'll be glad to answer your question. Or even after the show, you can send it to us, and we'll still get back to you on that.
Yeah.
So, Ori, let's go up to the slide with some of the features. Let's start with Bluetooth. What the number one thing that is always asked is range. And Dave, I don't know about you, but it seems to be that no matter how much we talk to customers, how much we blog about it, how much we engage with other folks, that seems to be the number one thing when it comes to the most misconceptions and what you can and can't do.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you agree?
People are
So,
looking for range so that they can multitask, and it's a matter of how far can they go.
and if you haven't seen any of our previous videos, we have several demonstrations that we've done with Bluetooth headsets and DECT, and you could check those out. And Ori, we probably could link those at the end of the at the end, and so people could go back and watch those, so you could actually see what those things do. But in terms of range, Bluetooth is generally a short range signal, so you're going to get about 10 to 33 feet. Some companies advertise a longer range than that, but it's always dependent on what's in between your phone and the headset. If you've got walls, if you've got a monitor, if you've got a microphone or plants in the way between you and that signal, you're probably going to get the lower end of the range, right, Dave?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And so that's the first thing to know. Are you looking for a headset basically that is near your work environment? So if I never leave this confine, um, that's probably 10 feet around me all the way. If I never leave here and that's all I need and that's all I'm good for, maybe a Bluetooth headset is good for you. But watch all the way through the end to see if that's actually what you need. On the other hand, when we're talking DECT, Dave, we generally tend to see that on DECT headsets, you can get longer than or further than 33 feet.
Yep. Yeah. So most of the brands advertise anywhere between up to 300 or up to 500 feet of range. In our last episode, we did a test with that to see what it was for real world. But all in all, you will get a lot better. Sorry, you'll get more range with a DECT based headset.
And let's tell the folks why that is. So if you're talking about using a Bluetooth headset, and I'm just going to pull one here that I've got next to me. This is the Jabra Evolve 65, and it could be anyone for that matter. These Bluetooth headsets don't put out as much power. And without as much transmission power or output power, you're just going to get a signal that's just generally weaker than you would with a headset. And I've got a few behind me that are DECT that come with the ability to transmit a much higher power signal. And with a much higher power signal, you're going to get a signal that's stronger, that's going to penetrate deeper, that's going to go further, and it's going to be less prone to interference. And so when you have something, and I'm going to reach back by way of example. All right, so if you've got, and this is what I've got in front of me here, just a wireless headset that has DECT. They tend to come with a base station. Oh, thanks, Ori. So they come with their own base station, and this is also acts as your go-between. So you've got your wireless headset that you wear, and it communicates back and forth with this guy. And because it communicates back and forth with this guy, there's a lot more consistency of signal, less chance for interference, and the ability to go much longer in terms of distance, much further. Whereas this guy over here, that's Bluetooth, or even those smaller ones that go in the ear that are earbud style, they just don't have that power. And that's basically because this guy that's Bluetooth wants to conserve your phone's power as well as its power. Whereas this guy that comes with its own dedicated power supply that can be recharged is usually connected to your PC or to a power supply. So you can replenish its battery much quicker. There's less of a concern about conserving battery because that's what you get with the Bluetooth variety. So, Dave, so DECT, power, did we cover that or did we miss anything there?
Nope, I think you hit it. I think you covered it pretty well. Just so that the viewers know, the product that Rolando was just highlighting is from EPOS, formerly known as Sennheiser. That's the D10 USB, which we have highlighted on the carousel if you're watching us on Amazon, down below.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Dave. And I think something that ties in right next to the range and the capability of the of Bluetooth versus DECT is really to break down the next piece, which is tied very well to it, which is the signal. The signal and frequency that's being used and how it's being used is very different. So on Bluetooth, you're getting a 2.4 signal, 2.4 gigahertz signal. On DECT, you're getting 1.9. And what I'd like to do, or if we can cue up that video with Scott from EPOS, so what you're going to see is a interview we had with an engineer over at EPOS, which is formerly Sennheiser, that explained this this specific topic very well from an earlier conversation. So we want to bring him in so you can see that. So go ahead, Ori, roll that footage. This would be the highway lanes, the 2 versus 4. Go for it.
DECT is a little bit different. When you go with DECT wireless technology, you can change some settings, you can change the power, you can change the audio bandwidth, you can create that space in between cars to allow others to move and to get on and off the highway. A caveat to that, though, is if you were to have, a few hundred users that are on constantly, so that DECT connection exists from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., you're stuck in that lane, right? You need to be able to deactivate, disconnect, reconnect, disconnect as calls come in. Think of a call center as an example. If that DECT connection from headset to base is always on and you're just answering from a UI or from a phone, that's going to cause problems. You need to be able to deactivate and reactivate, and that's where you can fit more when you do those settings, because otherwise you're holding one channel and just maintaining and going with it instead of letting others on. You're kind of taking up the lane and going slow. So that's kind of the way we like.
All right. Well, there you have it, Dave. 2-lane versus 4-lane. So with Bluetooth, you have a much smaller way to travel, or the frequencies and signals just can get congested much faster, right? And you were explaining to me earlier how over where you live in the New England area, how 2-lane roads, there's the common place to get around, right? There's mostly 2-lane roads.
A little bit further up north, yep, it's two-lane highways.
Are they all horse and buggies too?
Still horse and buggy. Right.
That'd be more like Amish Town. I mean, a beautiful place. So if you've never been out to Amish Town, I've been up there a few times. There's a lot of horse and buggies still out there as well. But
sure.
The 2-lane road versus the 4-lane highways is probably the right analogy. So with Bluetooth, once we're talking about signals and 2 lanes, is how many folks you can actually fit in one area, and we'll get to that later in our later segment. But essentially, just grasp the idea that with Bluetooth, you have fewer Bluetooth items that can be in one area. And so that has some implications for folks that may be returning to the office, that may all go back with their Bluetooth headsets. So that's something to keep in mind as you buy that. So if you're a manager, you're a business owner, and you have your people out right now working remotely, you may want to consider about what your plan is to go back when and if those workers go back all to the office. Right. So 2-lane versus 4-lane highway. That's all you need to understand right there. There's way more that we could have nerded out on that. But I think if you could get that concept with DECT technologies and DECT headsets, you can fit more into one area. And that's because of the way the technology is built.
Yeah.
Dave, did I get that one right?
Yep,
Did you want to add something on that?
No, the DECT products, you have a lot more control and flexibility, and you can put more in an area. Bluetooth, that signal 2.4, it's for Bluetooth headsets, it's for Bluetooth signal, it's for Wi-Fi, it's for, there's a lot of other things. So that 2-lane road certainly gets congested real fast.
It can. Yeah. So there we go. Well said, Dave. And so one of the things that that also is part of the mix when we're talking about congestion and talking about signal is how that can impact voice quality and voice sound. Now, there's several aspects of this that are important to understand when we're talking about voice quality and optimal voice. And before we jump into it, I also want to play back some comments from a conversation that we had with Scott from EPOS. Do we have that footage, Ori? The benchmark testing? And then we'll comment on the other side of this video. So go ahead and roll that. So the first thing, especially when you're talking about products that have been certified and gone through the ringer and tests with the Microsoft folks, what they're testing or their benchmark is can this headset perform alongside a dongle and meet the benchmarks rather than a PC or a laptop? That's what I heard you say.
As opposed to going native pairing, yes.
Okay. So the benchmark tests are against the dongle versus the native test. And I would imagine they may have a good reason why they're benchmarking it that way with the dongle versus one without.
Absolutely. So trying to pair your Bluetooth headset natively to a machine, to a laptop, that hardware, that chipset that's in there is supplied by a plethora of different places. It comes in different flavors for that chipset. You can buy a laptop or any computer that may have Bluetooth inside, and it may be of a certain structure where it's not allowing audio at all. It may not have that
Whoa, that's a big one.
A2DP
That's a big deal.
configuration.
So some laptops won't even have the A2DP profile. What you're saying is that that Bluetooth profile that's required for you to stream audio in both directions may not even be in that laptop, period, even though it has Bluetooth. All right. So are we back live? There we go. So muy important. That's why I put these nerd glasses on right now. It's going to get really nerdy. Do we have our nerd alert, Ulrich? So we there's no way around this without getting really a little bit detailed for the folks. So just bear with us because this is really important to understand because after the range piece of the equation, a lot of folks always tend to ask on a lot of the forums, a lot of online, our customer support, it has to do with how to use that Bluetooth headset with the laptop, why it's not working, why it disconnects, why there's only audio going one direction, why they can't connect it to just, I want to use that Bluetooth with my laptop, just like I use with my mobile phone. And I think Scott explained that very well, Dave, when he talked about the chips as it relates to laptops. Let's separate mobile devices for a moment. But as it relates to laptops, it's really important to know, and it's hard to know what he was saying, is you can't really tell if the Bluetooth that is native on that device will support A2DP, which is the standard that you need for headsets. Right, Dave?
Yeah, and I think he had also mentioned that even if you were looking at like a spec sheet for some of these laptops or the laptop or the desktops, they'll say on the spec sheet it has Bluetooth, but they don't go deeper into what that really means.
Thank you. And I don't know if one of the things that is hard to know, and it's like you said, the spec sheet, is that I think, or maybe he said this on another conversation, that a lot of the corporate laptops that are leased and sent out fleet wide, a lot of the times because of cost, some of those laptops may not have that profile built into those laptops, even though it says Bluetooth on it.
Yeah, right, exactly. So they'll
And
so like Scott was saying, there's so many folks that have the ability to source different styles, different types of Bluetooth chips, and yeah, sometimes you take from the inexpensive pile.
if you're concerned about cost, sometimes those are the things that get sacrificed is the Bluetooth chipsets. And because there's so much variance, and that's what makes it so hard to know, every manufacturer, Lenovo, Apple, Dell, they have their own way of doing it. It may have 4.1, 5.0, and even though it says 4.1 and 5.0, it may not have the same feature set that you would expect out of your mobile device. And that has to do with the simple fact that mobile devices are really built for talking. Now, they started off basically only a talk. You could talk and if you sent the text, it was a really crazy way to send text, but voice and text was what way to do it. Now they've evolved to handle data and streaming and all the rest, but it is a voice device first, even though in today's smartphones, they are mostly for data, right? Streaming, chats, watching videos and the rest, but it's still built with that as the base of those devices.
Right.
Wh- And whereas DECT is a signal that's primarily for voice only. And oh, well, before I jump to DECT, I just want to say, so one of the things that he was talking about and that he alluded to, and we've had those on other segments before, is the importance of using the dongle that comes with the device. So if you've got a Bluetooth headset that you've purchased and you've got spotty audio, you've got connection issues, you're having other issues that are related to the headset not syncing properly, many times the dongle will take care of it because, as Scott had mentioned to us in the benchmark test that Microsoft does, they benchmark it against this and the headset in the similar way as it was showing you with the DECT headset connecting with its base station. And they do that because this is a consistent audio path for a headset. Whereas, as we mentioned earlier, the laptops they don't always have that Bluetooth connection that you need for a headset use. So therefore they don't benchmark their tests against a laptop connection directly into a Bluetooth headset. Dave, you want to add to that?
No, you know, when you have the headset and the dongle, they were designed together in the same lab, the same engineers. They talk that very specific language so that you can get that great experience.
All right. Okay. So now that's the optimal voice. Let me just summarize that. With the Bluetooth, you want to use the dongle at all times with your laptop. Not needed, obviously, if you're using it with your mobile device. But let's switch over to the DECT side and talk about the voice and how you get optimal voice. So on a DECT headset, on a lot of them, you have the ability to configure some of these settings that are called narrowband and wideband. What basically what that means is that on a narrowband signal, your voice essentially gets truncated a little bit more like this. So you sound a little bit more boxy, a little more tunnel-like, and that has to do in the old days just bandwidth. This is how we can get the most voice out of this pipe, kind of like our 2-lane versus 4-lane analogy. Wideband changes that so that it's kind of like an HD audio. So you get a lot more of that spectrum, a richer voice. Here's the catch. Wideband audio will only work if if Dave and I were on a phone call and we want wideband audio, whether it's on this device or on our laptop or on our IP phone, which I have one right behind me. The only way we're really going to get a wideband audio is that we both have to be on IP. We have to be on an IP signal or an IP phone. And we both need to have wideband enabled on both of our ends. Otherwise, we're not going to get the wideband audio. And wideband audio sounds awesome. HD audio sounds terrific. Wouldn't you agree, Dave?
It does. You know, I remember the first time I experienced wideband audio, the world was transitioning to IP networks. Narrowband, I had never had any problems with it. It was a fine experience. But when I experienced wideband for that first time, it was, and I had always joked about this, it was like you really were right here having a conversation with me.
Right.
Sounds silly, but when people experience it, when you have the good products and you have the good network, it changes everything. It's a game changer.
It is great. I mean, I have it enabled on my phone, but I know that the moment I call somebody on their mobile device or whatever, and they don't have wideband audio, or the call is not connected over IP, which is really more important part, then it defaults to just like a normal cell phone conversation, just like you would be talking and you never knew that, they were on wideband or not. But both people would need that to happen. Now, here's the kicker about wideband audio. When you're using wideband audio, it does chew up more battery talk time. So that's why when you see, like the headset I just had, where did it go? I have so many headsets near me. The DECT audio headset, the D10, that's what I had on my hand.
Yep.
The battery talk time, they always say up to 10 hours, up to 13 hours, up to 16 hours. And part of that is because the manufacturers don't know if you're going to enable the wideband audio or not.
Yeah,
Because the
good point.
wideband is what chews up the more battery talk time because it's using up more resources to push more voice through that signal.
Right.
You going
Yeah,
to say
good
something,
point.
Dave?
No, I was just agreeing. No, that's a really good point. And then having the control from being able to go from narrowband to wide, a user can give themselves some more talk time. What it also does is it frees up an additional channel within that 1.9 gigahertz spectrum so that you can put more headsets in a given work environment. But we'll probably dive into that some other time.
Yep. And just to kind of, I love illustrating because people like seeing. I like to show rather than tell. So on this particular, this is a DECT headset that I was showing you earlier. You see all the knobs and switches on the back. These knobs and switches do a number of things, and they're configurable. So they allow you as the user to set those narrowband and wideband settings right on there. And a lot of these other DECT headsets will also do the same thing. They'll allow you to either switch it up in directly on the hardware or the companion software that will then enable to you to configure the headset in that fashion, which is another big distinction between Bluetooth and DECT. Bluetooth, on a lot of Bluetooth headsets, you don't get the option to make these types of changes. The DECT headsets, a lot of them do. So another big difference there. All right. Should we roll on into security? Dave, or did you want to add more?
No, let's go next.
So the next piece, security. This is going to be important for some of those folks that are watching. If you're in the financial sector, or healthcare, or you have privacy concerns, both signals have security. They both have different methodologies of it, but the bottom line here with security is, and we could have done a masterclass. We debated this long and hard. We could have spent 2 hours just talking about security because the algorithms, the hashing, the encryption, how the encryption keys are done. But the bottom line is this: if you want the Cliff Notes version is Bluetooth with 4.0 and above, they implemented AES encryption. And AES encryption is what the banks use when you make a transaction online. Well, I should say one of the algorithms deployed. There's public key, private key, a whole bunch of things, but just to know, AES started with Bluetooth 4.0. So if you're using 3.0 or one of the older versions of Bluetooth that are on your headset or your device, you're not going to get those benefits of the AES. So 4.0 and above. Now, when we move over to the DECT side, when we're talking about security, we have also AES, and they're using AES 128, which is the new, essentially the standard for what most folks are using when you talk about privacy and encryption and security. In my former life, I did a lot of things on the security side, and when you're talking about security, 128 is going to be pretty much what's across the board. There's one AES 256, which is at the moment the highest you can go on AES on commercially available encryption. There are certain specific applications that are used in that manner. I'm thinking of government applications. They use something similar to that. They don't all use AES. They have their own private encryption that's built and designed by the National Security Agency, also known as NSA. That's all I want to say on the security before we lose everybody, Dave. We could talk about NSA a whole nother day and what they do and don't do, but suffice to say, AES 128 on DECT, starting with the year 2012, is right around where they started implementing this encryption into the signal. So if you have questions about eavesdropping and privacy, somebody listening in, there have been well-known attacks against Bluetooth called bluejacking, where the signal from the Bluetooth headset has been intercepted. I could tell you this: these are not tools that the general person off the street tends to have. These are types of tools that somebody that really, really wants to do this is also an expert in the area of hijacking signals. Those are the folks that are trying to do this type of thing, not your average person on the street. Not to say that it can't be done, not to say that it's 100% secure, but for 99% of the people probably watching us, it's going to do the job. And if you are watching or listening and you have some questions about security, email us or contact us. I'll be glad to talk to you offline and in great detail about this, because I can give you a ton of resources. We can supply you with more information than we probably have time for on this episode. All right. So that's for the hardcore nerding part of what we've accomplished so far. So I'm just going to do a quick summary. range, signal, optimal voice, and security. If you have any questions on that, jot it down, shoot us a text. We'll go ahead and answer those for you. So now let's move on to the next section. All right, Dave. Dave, you want to take this on? Now we can take off the nerd glasses because it gets a little easier after this. I'll let Professor Dave go ahead and start breaking it down on talk time.
Device pairing is what we're looking at, not talk time.
Yeah. Device. Oh, did I skip one? Yes. I was looking at the. Okay, go ahead. Device
All right.
pairing.
So pairing. So there needs to be a match between the headset and either the phone, the dongle, or its base. A Bluetooth headset, you do have to initiate a pairing mode. Usually it's done by pushing and holding a button or a switch for 2 or 3 seconds, putting it in a pairing mode, and then using the other device as a, what do they call that? They do that as a, it's searching. It's
trying to connect.
Yeah, the term is I can't come up with the word
Discovery?
right now. Yes, thank you. Discovery mode. So you put your headset in a mode, you put the device that you're pairing it to into a discovery mode, and then you find it, you hit a button, and then they marry together. They pair up. So there is a slight process that you need to do with the Bluetooth headset. Now, the DECT headset, the one that Rolando has there is the D10 from EPOS. When these come in together, when you hook these up, if you put it in the base and then you apply the power, it's paired up, but it's paired up automatically. So it's very easy to pair together a DECT headset. More or less, it's just a natural setup.
Yep.
You plug it into
Drop
the
it
wall
in.
with it on. It syncs up, and then you're done. So pairing for the DECT headset is very simple.
It's super easy. So I would say on this one, if we had to pick a winner and you want easy mode, DECT is super easy. There's very little to do to nothing to get it to pair. You just drop it in the charger and it's done. Okay, let me take on PC connection. So if you're using a Bluetooth headset for your PC, as we talked about earlier, you'd want to use the dongle. That's going to get you the most optimal audio. Whereas the DECT headset that I have here, in order to hook that into a PC, that will generally come with a USB cable that will connect from the base into the USB port on the PC. So that's how it talks to the PC via the USB cable. So that's the difference there. When it comes to the mobile connection, the Bluetooth device is going to use the native signal on the mobile phone, and you will have to pair it like Dave talked about. And with some DECT headset, this particular one does not have the ability to connect to mobile devices because this is an entry-level model. But what we'll find, Dave, is the more advanced professional. Well, this is a professional headset, but it's just the entry-level model. Let's call them the advanced models that have all the bells and whistles. Those will generally tend to have capability for connecting to a Bluetooth headset.
They do. And what's interesting about that is a DECT multi-use headset that allows connectivity with multiple devices, a desk phone, a computer, and a cell phone. It talks to the cell phone with a Bluetooth, and then it talks back to the headset with the DECT signals. So on those higher-end multi-use solutions, they actually have both chipsets. So again, that's a conversation for another day as well.
It'll be just a long episode. And so we have them both. So I just want to say this at this point of the conversation, we have DECT headsets, DECT only headsets. We have the multi-use headsets. They're also on our website. They're on Amazon. We sell it on the Amazon store. So if you look at, I don't know if we have all of those in the carousel at the moment, but you could certainly check out our Amazon store where we have a plethora of these multi-use headsets as well. All right, so let's move on to desk phone connection. This is another piece where DECT is very simple in that regard. Some DECT come with the ability, and this model that I have is a PC USB version, but they also come in a phone version. So instead of having a USB cable, it comes with a phone cable so that you can connect it to the desktop. Now, the more advanced models, like Dave said, those will have the ability to connect PC, USB, as well as on a mobile device. So check the particular specs on that, and it will let you know if it can do that. Now, for the mobile side, on the mobile, for the Bluetooth, obviously, those are native pairing. That you don't have any issue. You shouldn't have any issues there. Just that the mobile needs to be paired and have A2DP on it, and you're good to go. And actually, I skipped a bit. Desk phone was what we were talking about. So on a mobile headset, I should say on a Bluetooth headset, if you want to use it with a desk phone, that desk phone must use or must have a Bluetooth built-in signal. So if it doesn't have, and not all desk phones support that, and some of you that are watching are working from home, you may not have a phone that supports that, but a lot of the new phones that have been coming out the last 2 years, from Yealink, from Polycom, some Mitel, have Bluetooth built in. Check the specs on that, and each one of these manufacturers does have a list of Avaya is the other one that I can think of, that they have a couple of phones that have Bluetooth built in. They will support it. Check the specs on that, and they usually tend to have compatible models that we have as well on our Amazon store. And on the DECT side for that, it's very simple. Dave, you want to tackle that one? Desk phone connection for DECT?
Desk phone connection. So that DECT base that you just had in your hand, that one was for USB. But they do also make them designed specifically just for desk phones. If you were to take one of these and turn it around, it has a small square style connection. You can hold it right up. These are very familiar to all users. You know, the one thing that really hasn't changed over the years is how these connect. So if you're familiar with how a hand receiver connects into your telephone, then a headset, a wireless headset like this, it has the same types of connections. So there's nothing to be intimidated by. So it's just that straight connection into the back of the phone. The headset pairs up to the base. You're good to go.
All right, wonderful. Dave, you know what I want to do right now? Because I know a lot of people's heads may be spinning from all the data. I just want to take a deep breath. Me too. Channel my inner Bob Ross right now. Just take a little breather. Let folks just reset themselves too. If you've had a lot of data that's been coming at you from us. So just take a moment, take a deep breath, and then we'll continue. All right. I'm going to take another deep breath. I need another one.
That was good.
Yes. All right. So we're now in the fourth quarter of this. So if you're watching us and you said, wow, that's a lot of data coming at me. Fourth quarter, baby. Fourth quarter. Hold up the number 4 for being in the fourth quarter. And we're going to finish it off here. All right. Now, speaking of fourth quarter, will be an interesting game to see who wins in that fourth quarter with the Super Bowl coming up. Any favorites, Dave? Tampa or Kansas City?
My money's on Brady.
You know what? You got to beat him. And both of the quarterbacks are really good. I'm going to go with the experience on this one. He's been in there. This will be his 10th Super Bowl.
Yep.
And he doesn't look like he's washed up. So it's hard to bet against Brady. Are they the favorite or the underdogs? Do you know?
They're the underdog.
Well, the younger, quicker, faster quarterback seems to be having the advantage. But we'll see. So we'll find out. We'll talk about it. Well, actually, not next week. So 2 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's jump into the fourth quarter part of this episode. So talk time. Talk time tends to be one of those things that also varies wildly on the headset you use. But generally, on the Bluetooth side, those headsets tend to have much shorter talk time. Like the AirPods is the one I'm thinking of right now. Yeah. It only has a few hours of talk time. On the DECT side, you can get 8+ hours on average, and some like the Engage 65 by Jabra, which we also have on our Amazon store. Those you could get up to 13 hours of talk time. So that'll last any shift that you have. And by the way, you know, I just thought of something. Some of the deck, not all of the decked headsets, but some of them are hot swappable, so that if, and I don't know now with this new COVID thing if that's going to be in vogue. I know it was very in vogue with hot desking, I think it was the term, or sharing desk and whatnot.
Yeah.
But if that's something that you need to do in your environment and that's something you're looking to do, the decked headsets, some of them are hot swappable, and we can help you if you have questions on that as well. Dave, anything you wanted to add on talk time?
You know, it makes sense that some of the Bluetooth products, like the earbuds, the i the AirPods that we did a demo with recently, it makes sense that the smaller form factor would have a smaller battery, so then present you with shorter talk time. It's also not designed for a professional. They're not trying to give somebody a tool to use in business, which is why you should avoid using those, in my opinion. The folks that are
Eh,
manufacturing the DECT headsets, it's a little bit larger form factor. They can stick a stronger battery in there, and these are geared towards working professionals where, at the end of the day, you still need to have enough juice. Business doesn't stop at noon.
And anybody who's used the AirPods could tell you. I mean, I've got a pair of them over here. They're great for streaming and they sound great, but boy, you got to throw them back in the charger probably several times a day to keep them going. You
Yeah.
won't have that problem with DECT. So advantage goes to DECT if talk time is one of those things that you really need and you're somebody that's on the phone quite a bit. Next thing, charging. That's pretty straightforward. Bluetooth, most of them all now are charged via USB. I don't know of any yet that are doing wireless charging, but most of them all have some form of charger that's required, and they use some kind of USB cable. And now I believe almost virtually every manufacturer, with few exception, they do not include the power supply inside the box. So the power supply tends to be optional in Bluetooth. Not so with the DECT. So like the DECT headset that I was showing you earlier, it comes with its own power supply, and also can be plugged in to a computer via USB and be charged as well when you connect the USB cable into the PC.
Right. And that's why it's not something that a mobile professional would want to be using. It doesn't make sense to box up the headset and the base station to work somewhere else. If you're a mobile professional and you want to work anywhere, a DECT headset may not be for you simply
Right.
because it needs the base to do the charging.
Correct. Well said. Exactly. So um, something to consider if you're on the fence on that. Um, the last two topics that we want to touch on before we wrap up: user group size. So this is really going to come into play for folks that are going to be going back to the office. Now, we're going back and for all of those managers and bosses out there that will or have plans on bringing people back, you really ought to consider what your environment is going to look like when folks come back to the office. Is everybody coming back? Are they going to, half here, half there, or a third, or rotating people around? Because if those folks come back to the office with headsets that they bought during the pandemic, and let's just assume for a moment that those are all Bluetooth headsets, you will run into some issues in terms of what's going to happen. Especially if once you get the closer, I believe Scott said the closer you get to about 50 units or so with Bluetooth, the more likely you're going to have issues with interference. Did I remember that right, Dave?
Yeah, I think that's right. And this is also where that analogy comes into play with the two-lane road. A two-lane road is fine if you have a couple of people on it. But if everyone is on that two-lane road, which is where Bluetooth is, you're not going to be able to come on and off. So the user group size would be smaller with that. One of the reasons why I wanted to focus on this was that DECT solution. I think a lot of them are being ignored for work at home people right now. And it's important to consider because, again, when people start returning back to the office, you're now on a 4-lane highway. If you have a DECT solution, you can put more people on it. You can also completely customize the range, the narrowband versus wideband. You can free up channels. You can do a lot of different things so that everyone can be wireless without any crosstalk or any.
That- I don't have anything to add. Well said. And so that's a big consideration for not so much for work from home, because I doubt you're going to have 50 people working at your house with Bluetooth or DECT. But going back to the office, definitely have plans for your devices Otherwise, you're gonna what is that? You fail to plan, you plan to fail. This would definitely apply in this situation. So it's something that may not be at the top of your list. There's a whole bunch of other things, people's health, people's safety, but along with that, it would be the user experience and what that's going to look like when they come back to the office, even if it's a handful of them. So
Yeah, well said.
lastly is, and I think we've been touching on this as we've been talking, is the ideal users for the headset. So from a Bluetooth perspective, Dave, you can chime in on this as well. I think the folks that are probably best suited for using a Bluetooth headset would be those mobile professionals that want flexibility. Maybe they're not tied at their desk. They're going to leave. They're going to go in the car. Or maybe they're road warriors and they're at home or and then travel and they jump on a plane. They need to talk when they're in the car. So they may spend some time in at home working and need that connectivity and that Bluetooth headset while they're, but they're also going to be outside and work outside the home or
Right.
outside the office.
Yeah, and the manufacturers for a lot of these Bluetooth headsets, they've realized that these are geared towards these working mobile professionals. So they give you things like that, the cool charging cables, the protective cases, etc. Headsets that can kind of fold up in itself because they know it's going to be thrown into a laptop bag and a backpack and shipped away. The target user for the a DECT user, these are office professionals or office centric. It could be call center, it could be office, but it's not a headset it's not coming with a cool bag. It's not intended to be thrown into a laptop bag. It requires its base for charging. You're not going to put the base and the big AC power supply together. It's just how it's marketed. It's how it's designed. So if you're an office-centric user, the DECT headsets, these are really geared towards you.
Well said, Dave.
All right.
I don't think I can add to that, man. You Professor Dave Kelly. What school or can the folks watch you at if they want to come to your classes?
The School of Hard Knocks, I believe.
All right. Well, if you powered through this entire masterclass, kudos to you. I wish we could give you some kind of educational credit, but we don't have that, and we're not going to advertise that. Maybe we should look into that too. But you certainly will have all the knowledge you need if you need to justify the existence of wireless headset in your environment, in your particular working situation. And if you have other questions about Bluetooth or DECT, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be glad to help you on your journey so that you get to sounding better so you can sell more. Now, Dave, let's go jump into our trivia question.
All right.
All right. So let's put that back up, Ori. So of these companies that you're looking at right now on your screen, there's 4 of them. There's Lionbridge, there's Amazon, Dell, and JP Morgan Chase. Which of these provided the most jobs? Again, this is pre-COVID, where these employers were looking for folks and they posted jobs about remote work. Go ahead, Ori. Reveal who the winner is. All right, Lionbridge. They're right in your neck of the woods. They're in
That's right.
Massachusetts, and they tend to post tons of jobs for. I can't talk. They have tended to post about 97% of their jobs are advertised as remote work, and the number one company is an Australian-based company called Appen. So, from the U.S. perspective, Lionbridge is number 1. Globally, they're number 2. And number 1 is Australia-based Appen. So if you're looking for remote work and you want to continue remote working, these are some. I would have thought that Dell or Amazon would have been in the top spot just because I know Dell does a ton of remote working and so does Amazon.
Yeah, I would have guessed JP Morgan myself, but I know a couple of folks that work for Lionbridge, and yeah, they're all remote and have been for a long time.
I never heard of them until last week when we started researching this. So Lionbridge, kudos to you and doing what you do best, which is bringing people to work and letting them work from home. So as we close this, I want to encourage you to hit all the bells and the whistles and like and subscribe, hit the notification buttons, and let us know if you like this content. Maybe you didn't like it. Tell us anyways. We'd be glad to switch it up for you and add some topics that would be of interest to you. So subscribe and hit all that good stuff. That way we can bring this great content to more people, and go ahead and share it as well. So Dave, any parting words before we bid our audience goodbye for the weekend?
No, thank you for joining us. Join us next week for another episode of What the Tech.
If it's Friday, it's What the Tech. See you then.